you guys miss me yesterday? Yeah, I know. When I'm gone, you don't have work. I know, it's terrible. So, I asked you to tell me why the dog and the cat don't make, well, dogs, right? Species, oops, together. And now I got to go back. I don't even know what I did. There we go. We had internet issues. That's not the Christian. Okay, we can't talk about religion in the classroom. Okay, so dogs are generally bigger and stronger. Dogs are bigger. Yep. Species we talked about. Isaiah, you're here. Where were you when I took attendance? Were you turning stuff in? Oh, okay. That's okay. You're here now. That's all that matters. Okay. Eyes, ears, claws for... Oh, you guys kind of hit it, but not quite on the head. Genes for sure. The chromosomes wouldn't match up. But I look at these two and I say, gosh, there's lots of reasons. Just their anatomy alone doesn't match up. They don't live in the same habitats. Their chromosomes definitely would not match up, although they look like they're getting along just swimmingly. Right? Isn't that a cute picture? See, I like look at pictures like that, and I got to do something with them, right? You got to put them somewhere. That looks like a poster on the wall of my grandma's house. Your grandma doesn't? No? My grandma will find a cute picture of something, and it doesn't matter if it's on a card, it will get put on her window or somewhere until it fades. No? So today we're going to look at the species concept and how we define a species. We'll look at when we consider a new species and when it has arisen, and we'll talk about studying extinction and how we actually determine the total net population is everything if you look at extinction and speciation together. But first we have to be able to define species. So scientists may use more than one definition of species. The definition used depends on the organisms and the field of science being studied. So let me ask you this question. We've talked about it a little bit before. Are a calico cat and a polydactyl cat the same species? Polydactyl cats have an extra finger, just so you know. So some of you say no. Many of you say yes. So neither of you are wrong, by the way. It just depends on if you're a biologist like me or if you're a cat breeder, right? If you're someone who breeds cats, you would definitely consider a polydactyl cat and a calico cat two different species. But if you were me, I'd be like, well, they can both breed and have viable offspring, and they will naturally, so they must be the same species. So in here, we say if they breed naturally and have viable offspring, they are a species in their own right. Okay? We'll talk more about subspecies today, too. So a species is generally defined as a group of natural populations that can interbreed and usually produce fertile offspring. If the offspring is not fertile, are the offspring a species? No. That makes us think of mules, right? Remember we talked about a donkey and a horse breeding to make a mule, but the mule is sterile, so the mule technically is not a species. So we call this the biological species concept. Mules kind of have it made if you think about it, right? They don't have to raise kids. They just get to hang out with all the other horses, get fed. Yeah.
A lot of our dog breeds.
Yes.
Real dogs.
Yeah.
You have a couple like one or two.
Yep. Gotcha.
Why are they like? I know they have the C-sections to have their puppies.
Yeah.
But like why?
So you asked a good question. Why do dogs have all these different species? And the question is, did dogs choose their selection, or did we artificially select for them? So would that be natural? No. Because their chromosomes match up. Yeah. And so if you were to put, let's say, one of those dogs that you have to have a C-section in to deliver the puppies, would that exist in nature? No. So if things all went back to the way they were, that would no longer exist. Natural selection would take over. We'd probably have just wolves again, right? Because I think I've mentioned that you aren't going to see a pug running with the pack. You know, it'd be comical, maybe, Unless you love pugs, and then it'd be sad and tragic. But they always look like they ran into something. Yeah. Or like a window. They are? I don't know. My sister-in-law had a pug, and it eats its own crap. So I don't know if that puts itself in an intelligent level. But maybe that's the definition of intelligence. I'm just dumb. I don't know. I don't want to start doing that though to test that theory. I'm not going there. So other definitions for species may be used for fossils or for organisms that reproduce asexually. I have this argument with my wife all the time. She thinks our dog is a genius, and I look at her like it's a dog. It's a dog. I know it's terrible. She calls it she calls the dog my daughter's brother. Yeah, I know. I tell her if I die, she's gonna end up a really weird old lady. Yeah, talking to cats and dogs all day. So instead of or addition to the biological species concept, species may be defined as their physical features. We talked about anatomy before. The ecological roles, what they play in their actual environment, the niche, right? And how related they are genetically. How their amino acid sequence is similar to another member of their own species or a different species. So each population of a single species lives in a different place or a different habitat, and that helps define and establish its adaptations, its species. And in each place, natural selection acts upon each population and tends to result in offspring that are better adapted to each specific environment. And then you start thinking about the Galapagos finches, right? And how Darwin looked at the different islands. All of those had a different habitat, and all of those finches were reproductively isolated and stuck on those islands. And so they had to adapt individually as each individual population to each island. So if the environment differs, the adaptations will differ. We call this divergence. And this can lead to the formation of many new species. And let's talk, I had the other class try to draw this, but let's think about this. Let's pretend that each of these lines is an island drifting away from the mainland of South America, okay? And let's say this island has only insects, and this island has a lot of, let's say seeds, tiny seeds. This one has nuts. This one has fruits. So do you guys remember talking about the different beak sizes? Okay, Mitch? And so this island might have drifted off of South America and then broke into two separate islands. And eventually all of these finches, and this is another island breaking off, this is another island breaking off. Eventually all of these finches would have become so far apart because of the plate tectonic shifting. We understand how islands drift offshore. Okay? And eventually they wouldn't be able to migrate from one island to another or reproduce with their neighboring finches. And then I would end up with these different species of finch that maybe they could reproduce together, but they don't naturally. So we have to call them their own species because they become so different. So we call that divergence. And when I look at divergence, if I asked you, would they all have a common ancestor back here? Yeah. And so if I say divergence, I'm referring to things with a common ancestor. What about this one? What if I bring in a separate line right here, and we say, okay, this is a bird. It has wings. I'm sorry. Let's say this is a beetle. Beetles have wings, right? Would a beetle and this bird, this finch here, have anything in common as far as their evolutionary past? No, but they both have wings, right? So we call that convergence. Everybody say convergence. Convergence. Convergence is when you have similar adaptations in the same area and habitat, but they do not have a common ancestor. If they do, like this, we say it's divergence. If they don't, we say it's convergence. So the wings of a bird and the wings of an insect, that is a kind of a coincidence because they live in the same habitat, but it is not divergence, it's convergence. That's going to be on your test, you guys. Yeah, you go back far enough, sure, we all have the same archaebacterial lineage, I agree. Yes. You got to be careful. You have to give it a reference point. Once you give it a reference point, then you can establish convergence or divergence. Yeah, you keep going back, Yeah, if I go and say, okay, 1 million years, then you can say, no, that's convergence. But if I say, 4.6 billion years, then, yeah, everything's related, right? So, So speciation is the process of forming new species by evolution from pre-existing species, changing over time. And this has occurred when the net effects of evolutionary forces result in a population that has unique features and is reproductively isolated. The reproductive isolation is huge as far as evolution is concerned because it allows you to change drastically, like on those islands. So it's a state in which two populations can no longer interbreed to produce future offspring. This can happen for many different reasons. It can be a finch not being able to fly too long or too far. Okay? Finches have a flight distance that they can travel. Once the islands drift far enough, they can't make it. Okay? It could be that they sing at different times. Who sings at different times? We've talked about in Michigan. Frogs, right? And so all of the frogs in Michigan could reproduce. They could breed and have viable polywogs. They don't because of when they breed. And so we have all these different species: wood frogs, spring peepers, green frogs, leopard frogs, bullfrogs. Yep. And yes, people have done experiments where they had the frogs breed and they made these cross hybrids. But they don't exist in nature, so we don't say they're their own species. So from this point on, groups may be subject to different forces, so they tend to diverge or become slightly different over time. Did we do this in human populations? Yeah. Did we all end up on kind of different continents? Right? Different races of people? And we changed just a little bit. Does that mean we're different species? No, because we can still interbreed and have viable offspring, right? So when I look at reproductive isolation, remember that's the state in which two populations can no longer interbreed to produce future offspring. And from this point on, the groups may be subject to different forces, so they tend to diverge over time. I think I put that in there twice, didn't I? I feel like I did. I got to delete one of my slides. Yeah, I know, but I reiterated it too many times. Yeah. I'll take that out for next year. So through divergence over time, populations of the same species may differ enough to be considered subspecies. We just talked about races of people. Would different races of people be considered subspecies? What do you guys think? Would different races of people be subspecies? Kind of a politically charged question, isn't it? Or, yeah, but not in biology. We don't worry about that. Politics and religion, we leave that for all the nonsense, the non-science stuff, right? What? That's where the word nonsense comes from, non-science. Yeah. No. So very good. I'm glad that you all have established that whoever has no, change it real quick. Races of people would be a type of subspecies. But we are all still the same species, like different species of dogs, Chihuahuas, Great Danes, Burmese Mountain Dogs, Labradors. They're all subspecies of the same giant species, Canis domesticus. Oh, you guys knock it off. Jeez. I'd do it too. I got a lie. All right.
Then I'll be back.
Thank you. All right. Oh, I haven't even started it yet. It's annoying to listen to. That's why I didn't start right away. I'll start it here in a minute. So any of the following mechanisms may contribute to the reproductive isolation of populations. They are geography. Oh, I missed one. Oh, subspecies are simply populations that have taken a step towards speciation or diverging in some detectable way. This may only be apparent after the passage of time. This could be just a different color, okay? Kind of like us. We've got different shades of people. We do. How about our moths the other day? Yeah, like the 9 shades of gray, right? He's doing his observation hours for SBC. He's just a student. Yeah. Quit, guys, in your shades of gray. So looking at the different mechanisms that will contribute to reproductive isolation, geography, location, where you're at, obviously, how far away you are could be a barrier. Ecological niche, the role you play in your environment is huge. If you can't operate or function in a high elevation region, you won't be there. And then mating behavior and timing, when you sing if you're a frog, this could be that. Polyploidyism, that has to do with your chromosomes. This happens more in plants. Having extra sets of chromosomes sometimes can be beneficial and create a new species. That happens in plants all the time. And hybridization, like our mule, right? Sometimes a hybrid can be a new viable subspecies or species. Sometimes it's a dead-end road, like a mule or a zorse or a seedless watermelon. And then extinction. Extinction happens when species fail to reproduce and make any more descendants. And it's like speciation. It can only be detected after it's complete. It's like, oh, there's one. He's not extinct yet, right? But yet once you can't find them, oh, it's extinct. You can be on the brink of extinction, but to be called extinct, you must no longer exist. In the wild. Zoos do not count, by the way. My sister, she works at the Minnesota State Zoo. They just got 2 seal monks. They're extinct. But the seal monks themselves are only in captivity now. Monk seals, not seal monks. What? They could. I think they're trying to get them to, but I don't know if they'll have any luck. They try, then they have to reintroduce them, and then your gene pool is so small, you're like inbred, so it's a big problem. So the species that exist at any time are the net result of speciation and extinction. And here's the kicker. More than 99% of all species that have ever lived are extinct. That means that we have less than 1% here today that has ever been here. Yes? So there was one time where there were millions of different types of fungus that covered the whole planet. There was another time where coral covered the whole planet. There were other times where obviously the whole planet was underwater, right? And so there was a time when dinosaurs ruled the earth, and then after that there were big mammals, right? So there was a time when plant life took over. We were a big giant rainforest. So here's the thing, guys. When you look at the Middle East, used to be a tropical rainforest. That's why there's so much oil down there, right? Think about it. So here's the thing, guys. Today, we have no real clue as humans. It's hard to really put it into perspective. We are just a blink in the eye in the history of Earth. We are less than 5 million years old as a species. We are young. We are brand spanking new. Okay? We're a crying baby making a mess. That's what I always say. Okay? So, oh, bacteria, yeah, they're still, yeah. Some are still here. Here's the thing, you guys. Could the Earth's surface ever support all of it at the same time? No. So you only can support so much carbon life form on the surface of the Earth. Otherwise, it has to evolve and become something different later, and then we can have extinction happen and new speciation occur. I will tell you this. The Earth will be just fine without humans. It will recover. I don't want it to, but if we keep doing what we are doing, we won't be here as a species in a few hundred years. Okay? No, the Earth will just heal itself and it'll be just fine. It'll go through its cycles and whatever. No, I doubt it. No, not at the rate we're going. So here's the thing. We're in an extinction right now. You guys, we are in one of the largest mass extinctions in the history of the Earth. What's so special about the extinction we're in right now? We're in a mass extinction, just like the one that killed off the dinosaurs. Just as big. We're in one right now. What's special about the current mass extinction? And I will tell you, the Earth has survived thousands of mass extinctions. It's no big deal to the planet. Who is it a big deal to? Us, right? We better figure it out. We can sit there and lie about it and do politics about it all we want. It does not change the net result of our actions. So if you put enough CO2 up into the clouds, like if a supervolcano goes off, we'll go into a 20-year winter, which pretty much will maybe not put an end to us, but devastate us. Go to Mexico, South America. They will, but they'll be not freezing. Yeah. Yeah. So here's the kicker, you guys, and a lot of you got it. So it is caused by humans, but here's the real crazy thing. It is the only mass extinction in the history of our planet that is caused by a single species, just one. That doesn't make us special, by the way. That makes us something else. We need to work on that. That's an area of improvement of our evaluation as a species, right? So many cases of extinction are the result of environmental change. Who changes the environment? Ding, 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 ding. Us, right? I do. I don't use those recyclable plastic bag or paper bags at the store like I'm supposed to. I'm just as at fault. I drive over 120 miles a day. I am just as bad as the next human being. Yeah. So if a species cannot adapt fast enough to change, the species may be driven to extinction. I am part of that. Yes, I'm driving the human race to extinction. Yeah. I need some smart scientists to come up with a new way to do things. Yes. You need international law. Yeah. Oh, I don't know about that. That's scary. So today, scientists may use more than one definition of species, and the definition used does depend on the organism in the field of science being studied. But we're in biology class, so we use the biological species concept. And speciation has occurred when the net effects of evolutionary forces result in a population that has unique features and is reproductively isolated. That's part of what drives evolution in one direction or the other. And the species that exist at any one time are the net result of speciation and extinction together.